people perishing in 3 separate accidents in Cameroon within 24 hours is just too much. Those are 40 husbands, wives, and children. These are family heads with lots of people depending on them. Each time such accidents occur, government authorities rush up and down, issue statements, and apparently go to slumber, waiting for the next accident to come up with what many observers say are cosmetic solutions to a deep problem. Why or who is to blame for this carnage? The driver who cares less about the lives of civilians, the bus owner who wants to make quick money, the policeman who fails to do his job, commuters who do not question the roadworthiness of vehicles and or the state of drivers, or the car roadworthiness inspection officer who views us as fit for use, fit for the gutter vehicles. We shall also look at political activity within the CPDM, the SDF, the UPC, and the MPDR. Why this rush for repositioning? This is Press Hour. This is CRTV. I am Moki Edwin Kinzeka in Yaoundé, and our guests are Professor Jean-Claude Chanda Tonmi, who is career diplomat and chairman of the MPDR party. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
We have by Professor Moa Patrick, journalist working with the Guardian Post newspaper. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Moki. I'm happy to be part of this panel. It appears to be the first time I'm appearing. After I come back, this is the first time I'm appearing on the program.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's quite a pleasure.
We also have Jobati Joseph, who is Corporate Communication Officer working with the Mipo Malone, the Local Material Promotion Authority. Joe, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Moki. It's my pleasure.
I do not need to introduce Kemnemo Dennis, the very vocal spokesperson for the SDF party. Dennis, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Moki. Good afternoon, dear panelists, and good afternoon to our dear televiewers.
We begin with the program with what newspapers reported during the week. Emmanuel Vimnyoy is on standby.
The withdrawal of Doctors Without Borders from the Northwest region becomes that one subject reported by most newspapers the week ending. Government's quest to deprive the vulnerable of health care pays off, in the voice of the Post-Weekender. As Doctors Without Borders quits the Northwest, provoked by government's ban on their activities in the sun, and as Cameroon finally closes borders on Doctors Without Borders in the voice, the sick, wounded, vulnerable are in limbo, in-depth newspaper with thousands in danger as Doctors Without Borders withdraws from the Northwest in the Guardian Post. Happening when Human Rights Watch accuses soldiers of desecrating palaces, destroying artifacts in the Guardian Post, yet government remains mute on rights groups' report which indicates more than 5,300 people have been killed in the crisis in the sun. And immediately, Army spokesperson Captain Atong Fak Serge lambasts Human Rights Watch, saying Army did not rape, loot or torture civilians in the Voice Weekender. At a time, thousands remain stranded, businesses bleeding, commodity price hike due to ban on Bamenda Ekok Road in the Guardian Post. The Voice thinks it is time to listen to the women on how to end the bloody crisis, and so the advocate is presenting what women want, which is continuous inclusive dialogue that addresses core issues in Northwest-Southwest crisis in the horizon as they converge on Yaoundé to talk peace in the Reporter, then commit themselves to working in synergy in Cameroon Tribune, especially as they have the numerical strength of over 1,000 to crusade for peace in the Herald Tribune, with victims of violence giving heart-wrenching testimonies at Women's Peace Conference in Yaoundé in in-depth newspaper. The Post-Weekender wants to know if Women's Convention for Peace failed on primary objective. Then IMF snubs women, grant more loans to Cameroon in the Eden. To the horizon, IMF approved 375 billion francs loan to Cameroon despite protests from women activists. Cameroon Insider indicates that the 375 billion CFA francs has been gotten within the extended credit facility and will be directed to economic recovery. And as the Post-Weekender celebrates IMF confidence bestowed on Cameroon again with the 375 billion francs loan, The Guardian Post talks about EU that hails Mortaze and team for playing key role in fresh 375 billion CFA francs loan. Just when a Cameroonian-born woman is appointed senator in Canada in Cameroon Insider, 17,000 women in Cameroon are said to suffer from obstetric fistula in the Guardian Post. Ahead of the new school year, 106 schools are shut down for operating illegally in Cameroon Insider. Cameroon Tribune then says 58 of these schools are in the littoral region. At a time, 3,000 new teachers are recruited into the Cameroon Public Service in the same paper. Cameroon Insider highlights the 3,000 more teachers recruited are to reinforce basic education, just when 7,000 GCE examiners showcasing skills standards in Boya and Limbe in municipal updates. The draws for AFCON 2021 are then fixed for August 17 in the Star, and Prime Minister tasks councils to beautify cities in the sun. Cameroon Tribune reports on the pressure that's mounting as AFCON preparations intensify, especially as Prime Minister insists he wants a hitch-free event in the same paper. The death of 40 people in series of road accidents within 24 hours in Cameroon, the death of Cameroon's iconic Makossa singer Nkoti Francois, the visit of regional council presidents to the Prime Minister with grievances, the arrest of PCC pastor's wife in Douala for allegedly pouring hot water on 17-year-old, also form stories reported by the papers this week. Let's now end our press review with a story in the Guardian Post, where Cameroon wins Africa's wine boozing trophy. According to a research carried out by Sagacity Research, a market research and data analytic firm dedicated to African markets, Cameroon has been ranked second wine consumer in the continent. Until I come your way again, this is your Hour with the Press.
Thanks, Emanuela. Now, gentlemen, you followed what Emanuela reviewed. There's what you reported, you reporters who are here. And Jobati Joseph, you do little reporting, but Patrick, what caught your attention in what you reported?
Yeah, quite a good number of the stories that were reported by the media this week. I think amongst those issues that caught my attention is the complete withdrawal of Doctors Without Borders from the Northwest region that is in a crisis situation. I think it's a little bit worrying that the international medical charity is leaving the Northwest region at a time when their services are rather needed the most. In terms of, we have seen there have been repeated attacks that have left several persons wounded. We have seen incidents that have left people in distress who are, of course, in need of medical care. And due to the volatile situation in the Northwest, medical care, so many communities have been deprived of medical care, and the medical charity Doctors Without Borders has been doing a lot to ensure that persons in need of medical care are offered those very important services.
Can you revisit why they were actually?
There are allegations. There are allegations.
With this
yes, those are allegations that appears to be blanket accusations at the moment, because it beats my imagination that if at all a group like Doctors Without Borders was indulged or is engaged in having links with separatist fighters, of course, I think just suspending them in the Northwest leaves much to be desired. It gives the impression that there's more to it than meets the ordinary eye. Of course, if the group has been assisting separatist fighters in the ongoing conflict in the Northwest and Southwest, why then is it that the activities have suspended in the Northwest and they continue to operate in the Southwest and in the far North regions?
That is not the first time it's happening to Doctors Without Borders in Ethiopia and other countries.
Of course, I'm not.
Apparently,
yes, of course, I'm not holding briefs for Doctors Without Borders, but I think when you look at the situation of those countries wherein Doctors Without Borders, the activities have been suspended, they are almost the same countries, or authoritarian regimes with dictators at the helm. So it really, to me, it's not strange. Those are not examples that we can copy. Yes, they have been suspended elsewhere, but should we applaud such action when people apparently will be dying because they have no access to healthcare and all of that. I use a common example in the Northwest, for example. On Mondays, for example, it's difficult to leave your home and carry a sick person to the hospital. It's virtually difficult because of the ghost town that we all know. There are other days where sometimes the separatists call for complete lockdown. And it's difficult with people dying at home just because they cannot, there's no car is moving. How do you then get yourself at the hospital and so on? So Doctor Without Borders is an emergency organization, a medical charity that comes to the aid of people in need of health care. And they have really been doing a lot. The statistics are there to show. People have been testifying. People have virtually been wailing and crying ever since government banned the activities in the Northwest. And so I think it's worrying, and I'm sure we pray that something is done and done soonest for Doctor Without Borders to re-engage in the Northwest and Southwest.
Thanks, Patrick. May I inform you that the regime in Cameroon was voted democratically in 2018, and you're aware of that? You said dictatorial regimes or...
But dictatorial regimes do not necessarily mean that they seize power. We are talking about the statecraft, how the statecraft is managed.
Let us continue.
It defines whether the regime is dictatorial or not. The parameters are there. I'm sure we are not here to expound on that. But
as I said, we're not debating on that yet.
Certainly.
But let's continue. Professor, you also followed Emmanuel Avenue's review of what newspapers reported in Cameroon during the week. What attracted your attention?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of everything, let me respond to my brother Johnson's side. We even came out with a statement this week on the issues of Doctor Without Borders. Let me just pull your attention that those are foreign organizations working in a foreign country. They are established in a country according to a particular agreement with some reference system they have to look at. And when it comes to the point where maybe the state believe at one point they did not behave in the right way, they did not behave according to the reference term that was established when they were coming in the country. They can stop. They can say, okay, let's discuss again and see what happened with this. It did not only happen in Cameroon. For instance, in the United States, after the 2001 11 September attack by Al-Qaeda, a lot of Ghanaians were suspended, even during Mr. Trump administrations. Even in France, recently, some organizations were suspended, believing to be terrorism and so on, even some charities organizations. What I'm saying is really worrying because we, as a country, let me explain that we have always have a very good cooperation with a framework, legal framework, to help those organizations being established in Cameroon, what you call humanitarian organizations. But still, we remain a sovereign country. We are the only, the state, the government of Cameroon is the only authority to decide whether an organization can be established in Cameroon and work in Cameroon. It's the only authority to decide or to see why, what, and when something is going on wrong. Anyway, what happened is, I believe...
I think we're just taking that briefly. That's not the type of discussion for
exactly,
now.
I know. But I was just trying to clarify. It's really worrying. We all know the situation in the Northwest and in the Southwest. But still, let's not make it as if it was something in a hatred movement and so on. There is a problem with those organizations at times, and we have to sit down and think about it.
And negotiations are ongoing from what Doctors Without Borders is saying.
Exactly.
Now, Joe, let's take it briefly now. What caught your attention besides Doctors Without Borders?
Yeah, thank you, Moki. Besides Doctors Without Borders, I think there's a story that caught my attention, and that is about on economics. The 375 billion francs borrowed to Cameroon by the IMF. What actually pulled my attention to that story is the fact that Cameroon seems to be limping because each time we are going out for borrowing. The rate of borrowing in this country leaves a lot to be desired because now we tend to ask a lot of questions. What is actually the state of our economy? If at every one time Cameroon has to carry a project, we pull our basket, our money basket to, to the donor organizations for funding. 375 billion. That is just after we had the Eurobond, which was also another form of borrowing. So are we actually living on borrowing?
Is the problem borrowing or borrowing to invest to make more money? Because if it's borrowed and invested in projects can make money,
it means if we have been borrowing and investing to make money, I think we should have also been at the level of reaping already. Because the problem is that we keep borrowing,
So thank you very much. That's your opinion. And I want to indicate that in Central African states, when you borrow up to 70% of GDP, that's when there's a problem. Cameroon is still at less than 40% of the GDP, if I'm not mistaken. So it is not yet bad as we think to be saying. I'm not also defending the government. Now, Cameroon Dennis, you also listen to Emmanuel Avamnui.
Yeah, I would have loved to come back to the suspension of Doctors Without Borders in the Northwest and Southwest, but I think there are many other issues because that one is really painful to me.
Yeah.
If you know the frame of mind of the Cameroon government, you will not lend any credit to the accusations they give to Doctors Without Borders. Because in this war in the Northwest and Southwest, Cameroonian government has adopted the policy or the principle which I learned from George Bush of the US, that you are either with us or you are against us.
That's right.
That there is no neutrality. That is to say, in the Northwest and Southwest, some of us who come from there, the government doesn't tolerate any Cameroonian being neutral. And that is why there are people who are being arrested who live there because they don't show separatist hideouts.
You mean that the hundreds of other organizations still operating there are either with the government
or
with the government?
The issue is we are dealing with people who treat war casualties, war victims, Doctors Without Borders, those who are wounded in war. And they have to treat without questioning whether you are separatist or whether you are. Their role, if I'm not mistaken, is to save lives, no matter whose life. So if the government has had a tendency of breaking into hospitals and removing wounded separatists and killing them and accusing the doctors who treat those people that they ought to be reporting them to government, then you understand that the government will not be comfortable when a foreign organization called Doctors Without Borders come and treat those people whom to the government are terrorists who are meant only to be killed. So we must also understand this frame of mind of the government. And that is why some of us who come from Northwest and Southwest, we know the pain.
You need Doctors Without Borders.
We need them, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank God the statements issued by Doctors Without Borders say they still maintain a liaison office in Bamenda while expecting that negotiations go with the government. So hope negotiations are going on. Now, let's move to the first topic of our discussion today. We're talking about this carnage on Cameroon roads and asking who is to blame. Within a short period of 24 hours, 40 souls perished in Cameroon. Dennis.
I fell in love with your intro. The beginning of this program, when you mentioned the different stakeholders on the road and finding fault with almost all of them. I agree with your point that the government is to blame, the road users, that is the transport agencies, are to blame, the drivers, and you go down the line. It is a collective responsibility.
Thank you.
Nobody can really say that it is only A or B which is responsible. However, we should establish the degree of responsibility. And to me, I think that the government is grossly responsible. And I'll explain why. If it were just exceptional cases, we could say it is individual recklessness. But when something gets to the proportion of a pandemic, the roads have become among the top 5 killers in this country. And when it becomes something so general and so catastrophic as we see, and then the only thing we openly see government doing is to come out and suspend traveling agencies, and the next few weeks they are out operating under a different name as it happens, or even those who are obedient to the law stay on till the suspension period ends, they come back and the same thing happens. then if you become general like this, it means that the gross responsibility lies in the hands of policymakers, because they are there to legislate, they are there to follow up, they are there to solve problems. And when a problem becomes general and endemic, it means that somehow the government is not doing its work. And to be concrete, I think that the government should crack down.
We shall get to solutions.
Okay.
Let's start by establishing responsibility.
But however, please, I have not said that the government is responsible alone. But
we got you very well.
Yes,
you said that you've attributed responsibility even to the drivers.
Yes.
Now, Professor, the case in which about 22 people died, apparently that truck was carrying passengers on top of the truck, and they transporting people like goods. What is the take about that?
The fellow have said just everything. It's a collective responsibility. How do we even say somebody is responsible? I tend to say it's a question of education, but then you sit down and you watch. How come we just say it's a question of education? You have people taking care of the world from the structure of the country. Why is it that this can happen? People sitting on the top of the truck. It's even riding between city and city, meeting in the meantime policemen and gendarmes and so on. It's keep riding and nobody says something. I'm really worrying, because if we keep in the past, then it will just be even difficult to travel again. Something must be done. We need strong sanctions. We need punishment of the people who are reckless in the street.
Let's attribute the blame. Here started with the government. They legislate, they're supposed to go and implement, they're supposed to do the controls, the checks and balances is not done. Now let's move on to the owners of these agencies.
Yeah, okay, for instance, let me tell you something. Most of those big companies today have a variety of owners. You just invest your money, you get a big car and go and give and throw it today. Most of the owners are public servant, even top public servant. Like I wouldn't go on with
like ministers and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And you were talking about company being suspended the next day, being in the street and riding again, going through accident again. We have really a moral problem in Cameroon before talking about people education. So it gives us the sense of just going back to bad governments and so on. There's no other word or other qualifications. I believe the responsibility is a collective one. And while saying it's a collective responsibility, somebody had to be taking care of the country, of the government and so on. Who manage the country and how the transportations of the people is managed in the country. You just don't sit there and then the next day 10 people have been killed, 7 people, 20 people, 40 people in the meantime, in 3 days. This is, I find it's terrible. You see, for instance, you have a company. Some of the company are weekly involved in accidents, and the next week they are still on the road. Then what happened? We should start really saying no to some company for good.
You mean they should be banned for good?
They should be banned for good, really. Let's say, they will tell you, okay, this is vacation period and so people are traveling, so this is feast period, people will be traveling and so on. No way. For the kind of rate of killing we are seeing now, we need something got to be done. We need to start banning company for good.
Patrick, it is happening at a time when we see police officers, gendarmerie officers doing road safety campaigns. It would have been worse if these guys were not on the streets.
You make me to laugh when you talk about road safety campaign. We used to see this drama some 5 years ago. You see the minister visit, will just make a surprise visit on the highways, and then they have some few cars impounded, and then they're on cameras, and the drama goes on and on. Now, once the minister goes back to the office, the same cacophony continues.
Yeah.
You see, you find a car without a headlight. You find a car with broken windscreen. How do you even see through a broken windscreen, for crying out loud? And you pass about 7, 5, 10 controls on the highway. They are checking the roadworthiness of the car. They check documents, and at the end, you still find those cars in bad shape plying the road. Now, the problem is, I think it's more or less a fundamental issue, because I think government lacks the political will to curb road accidents in this country. To begin with, we don't yet have a legislation on punishing or taking care of road accidents. There's a bill that's still pending. That's last year was announced that the bill was to arrive Parliament on road safety. Other countries have adopted that same bill, and they are doing well.
This is one of the accidents that occurred.
Yes.
That is a truck that is supposed to be transporting goods. How comes it that you find 30, 40 people on it?
But it's part of the cacophony I'm talking about. Nobody cares so long as the truck is able to pay maybe 2,000 or 3,000 francs. The road is open for the truck driver to continue the journey. It happens even with us. You sometimes travel on the highway and you know what goes on there. When you talk about radar and so on, road safety, you go there, they say, okay, you were on top speed, you went above the speed limit and all of that. Once you are able to have some money paid, you are allowed to continue your journey. It is part of the problem, and nobody has ever been sanctioned for that. When you talk about it doesn't go unnoticed. It is noticed by even government officials, but nobody does anything to curb or to have that stop. We are not saying that there is a magic wand to have accidents completely halted along our road. Even our advanced democracies, where they have the best roads and so on, accidents are inevitable. Yeah. But as our own happen because of some kind of vexing negligence and all of that, that you really find a car that is not in the best form of state, the car is plying the road, even the passengers, nobody complains.
That is what I want to ask. If you look at passengers too are responsible.
They are responsible.
You see a car in the back seat.
They are responsible. If you look at statistics, as of 2019, we're told by government, a government report released in 2019, saying that human causes accounts for 70% of the road accidents that we get.
Yeah.
And they talk about the mechanical causes amounting to 20%, and then the state of the road, that is the environmental causes, amount to just 10%. But I beg to differ with those statistics. I don't find them real. If you look at the nature of our roads, you cannot tell me that our roads contribute just 10% to the number of road accidents that we have. Statistics by the World Health Organization, in 2019, there were 16,000 accidents in a year, amounting to 1,200 deaths. It's alarming. It's alarming, and those statistics are even underestimated, because there are accidents that go unnoticed in enclave areas, in Furawa, in Gelemenduka, in places that are not even, that the accessibility is everything but horrible. So you can imagine, if you look at those statistics, I bet your government is just trying to push the blame on the road users, on the car owners and all of that. Now, I think our roads contribute more than 70% of the accidents that we get.
Okay, let's try to look at where the accidents occur and look at if the roads are very bad in those portions we'll start talking about it. Because I want to think that the roads are very bad in some regions, maybe in the hinterlands of the central region. You don't hear many of those accidents when the roads are bad there. It means the drivers, Jobati, the drivers who are driving on those bad portions know that they're bad and they are careful. Why is it that most of the accidents occur around the Death Triangle, Douala, Yaoundé, Bafoussam, Douala?
Yes, okay, thank you. Really, roads have really become serious death traps. I mean, the paved roads or the tarred roads. Because when you look at the statistics we have at hand, we see that most of the accidents occur, the deadly accidents occur on the tarred roads. Where we have even maybe on tarred roads, once there are accidents on those roads, I think the degree of fatality is less than those on tarred roads. Now, let us look at these recent cases, because this is something I want to raise here. Let us look at how those accidents occur. When you look at these three accidents, if I'm not mistaken, they were head-on collisions.
Yeah, right? That's right.
When they are head-on collisions, it means there's a fundamental problem with the roads. Narrow. Right? Because if our roads are wide enough, I think we will first of all, reduce this aspect of head-on collision with vehicles on the road. Cameroon has one of the, I think, highest rates when it comes to tarring a kilometer of road in Africa and maybe beyond. But when you look at the width, the width of our roads, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there are a lot of questions which remain unanswered. There are a lot of questions which remain unanswered. I do not refuse the fact that maybe the drivers, they have their own share, in this whole wahala. Because the drivers too, you know, when you are somewhere, you need to manage what you have and know how to manage it. If you are driving in Cameroon, you already know, the level of our roads, so you need to drive with a lot of care. But the drivers don't seem to take that into consideration.
Some drug themselves.
Yes,
we saw some of them drugging themselves.
Yeah, drugging themselves. I mean, so the drivers, though the companies too, maybe at times, because I know, maybe working for a company, they might impose a number of maybe trips you have to do per day.
That's right.
And doing that means the car owner is there to make his money. He means he wants his 3 trips or 2 trips per day, without caring about, you know, the situation of the driver. If you leave here, go to Bamenda, and maybe you need to drive back, or you drive a vehicle to Douala, and maybe you don't rest for even 30 minutes, an hour, that vehicle is already full. And then you are coming back to Yaoundé. Did you have enough time to rest? No. I mean, we are human beings. Now, if we are human beings, we know...
I just wanted to... just to add something to what Joe is saying. You know, like I said, the human aspect is really alarming. The causes, you know, due to the human aspect. Now, let's look at what kind of cars do we drive? How many people drive first-hand cars? Cars that just left the factory. The kind of cars we import off-the-road cars that are in the worst form of state. Cars that are supposed to be off the road, those are the cars that we're importing.
I think countries like countries, a law not to import cars.
The laws are there. Cameroon has the best laws, but the issue is not just to have the laws. Are the laws being implemented? If you go to Ghana and see the kind of cars that are imported, there's a regulation on the nature of the cars that can come in and those that cannot come in. But here, go to our ports and see the kind of cars that we start driving here. Cars that have covered 18,000 kilometers. Cars are already in the work form of state, and we consider the new cars that have to be flying our state and carrying people.
A major problem? What is the situation? You spend a lot of time in America and the rest. Do they allow those? Are there cars that are banned on that Cameroons go and import and bring to their country?
No.
With little control?
No. I mean, let's come down to some kind of pragmatism. Talking about used car and so on, I don't believe this should be the central issue, talking about accident in Cameroon. Basically, believe me, we have two set of problems. Generally, as my fellow brother from SDF said, it's a global responsibility. But of everything, I believe, we have problem of education. We have come to a point where any Cameroonian believe je peux faire ce que je veux or on va faire comment. I mean, it's not only between cities. See the way people drive in Yaoundé, for instance, or in Douala, in Bamenda, and so on. People are really reckless, and we need to come down to a new set of education for the population of our country. We're talking about driving and so on. Let's see who won the cars, for instance. You don't have, we're not talking about basic people or poor people, even talking about drivers and so on. Drivers are, people refer them to the set of greed that's going on in the country. People need to make money quickly, and people need to work, and people need to drive. I mean, let's go in the CRTV stuff. How many of you, of 10,000 of you here in journalists, can afford a new car? I don't believe the problem is not used car. The problem is reckless driving. And when we talk about reckless driving, we talk about education. Now, when we talk about education too, you talk about education in a whole set of a country, which come down also to the problem of governance. It will always happen. We have accident in the United States. You're talking about narrow street, but you really put it the right way. You know the way the state of the road is.
You know how to drive.
You adapt.
You adapt.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Cameroon Dennis, we're ending with you on that topic. You started proposing solutions, but I think one most important solution is that of educating the masses. I've seen buses leave from here when they get to Markenene. The driver says, Massa, the way this driver drives well, and the first thing is giving him a bottle of beer. So we need to also educate the people on how to behave.
Yes, I agree with you entirely that education is very necessary. And I think the first people to be educated should be those in charge, that is the government, to take its responsibility. Because a while we're talking about the state of cars, Why I don't subscribe to the fact that the state of cars are a really major problem, because every car, the state of a car depends on maintenance. If you have a new car and you are reckless about it, you don't maintain it well, it will soon become a very bad car. Exactly. And you can have a car that you have driven for 20 years. If you constantly maintain it well, change when it is necessary the parts, you can see that that car can be more performant than a car which is 5 or 10 years old, which has not been well handled. That said, however, you see the government encourages the importation of already out-used cars, because the most expensive cars to custom is on the most expensive rate of custom is on the state of newness of the car. And so when you see the price of cars that are in Cameroon are exorbitant because of the money they pay in terms of income custom duties. Yeah. And the fact, and the bitter fact is that the newer the car, the extremely expensive the custom duty. The government could discourage the importation of old cars by increasing the income duties on old cars and reducing for new cars. That will make people go for new cars, and that is the problem. Yeah. People have imported cars and abandoned them there just because they cannot pay the import duties, because of the state of the car is so good, so the income duty is extremely high, they cannot pay. So people go for cars that are just average or are just manageable. That is the issue. And as you talk about education, I think that while we educate, we should know that the roads are a major cause of this accident, no matter the level of education. Because you talked of the triangle, which has been referred as the death triangle, that is Douala, Yaoundé, Douala, Bafoussam, Bafoussam, Yaoundé. It has been referred cynically as the death triangle because of the number of deaths that occur on that road. The issue is the volume of traffic. When the volume of traffic is extremely high, because these three towns constitute the highest population agglomerations in Cameroon. And if you need to stand on the weekend and see the volume of cars on the road, people traveling, go to traveling agencies and see people on the road. And so when you have roads with this type of heavy traffic, volume of traffic extremely high, the only way to solve that problem is
improve the state of roads.
That is not just improve, widen the roads. We need the Douala Bafoussam Road, Bafoussam Douala Road, Yaoundé Bafoussam Road has to be a two-way lane. Yeah.
I want to thank you very much. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we shall talk politics. This is Press on TV. Thanks for watching Press Hour. The UPC is preparing its Congress from the 11th to the 13th of September, and the Congress is talking about reconciliation. Can Professor BrigadeAntiSardinard and Honorable Baboli Pot reconcile? The SDF in the West region and other regions of the country, that is including Chang and Buda, have been going round with Jean Chemelu, encouraging people to register and prepare for elections. The MPDR is calling for reconciliation, national dialogue and everything, with Professor Jean-Claude Shanda Tomni leading the cause. And then the CPDM party is, as we speak now, reviewing and electing members of its basic organs. We start with the politicians. Kmer Dennis, what makes you run at this time? You politicians.
To others, it may be something new. To the Social Democratic Front, which I represent on this set, it is a usual activity with us, because we are the only we are one of the few, if not the only political party in Cameroon that respect our calendar. We know every 5 years we have a national convention. Our structures have regular meetings. We are the only political party that every 3 months or 4 months in a year we have a national executive committee meeting, which is the ruling organ of the party, and put the debates and put them in public by inviting journalists and putting out resolutions that are read by everybody. I bet anybody to tell me another political party in Cameroon with that type of regularity of meetings and information, informing the public, discussing in an organ and a structure on what is going on in the country. What is happening now is just part of the normal routine. In the last National Executive meeting, we took note of the fact that all the wards executive, which is the smallest unit of the party, structure in the party, all the electoral districts, all the coordinations, and all the regional executive bureau have come to the term of their mandates. And as power in the SDF is achieved through elections, popular vote, that's why we talk of power to the people, we saw it necessary that we should reorganize and new structures executives put in place.
From when?
That is why the only structure in the SDF now, whose mandate has not yet come to the end, is the National Executive Committee, because we were elected in 2018. And our next convention is due for 2023, 5 years. And for us to have that successful convention, we have to start reorganizing from the base, because it is the base that chooses the National Executive Committee. So what you saw in the West region is a national tour that the Secretary General of the party under the guidance of the Secretary General of the party and other top official members of the party will carry in all the 58 divisions of the country. We started in Buda, as you rightly said. On the 28th, we'll be in Fumban, and then on the 29th in the morning, we'll be in Banjul, and then afternoon on the 29th, we'll be in Bafusan.
Okay.
From there,
so
we'll move
you're preparing for more intense
in order to end this is important. You also know that the vibrancy of the SDF for some time have been expressed by the different disputing currents in the party. Is not a secret to anybody, and we also saw that and that is why we created a reconciliation commission in that in the SDF, and that reconciliation has done a very wonderful job. That is why in the last third that existed between the First National Vice and the Littoral region, were able to put it to rest. And this tour around the country is also to bring the ranks together, so that as a strong force, we
are the first vice president, the coordinator for Littoral, are they part of the tour?
Of course. For your information, the regional chairman of the regional president of the Littoral, following the circular of the Secretary General outlining this national tour, and following the decision of National Executive Committee to reorganize all the party organs from the lowest to the highest before latest 2023, which will end with a convention, he has already set out a program, created committees, which will go down to reorganize all the wards in Littoral.
Thank you. So let's come to you, Professor. Your own party is talking about reconciliation, talking about dialogue.
Yeah, so it is really amazing looking at people exciting on the field for position and so on. I believe the main problem of our country now is to try to appease the country, to try to ban the statement of hatred and so on, and to bring Cameroonians together. We have been working a whole lot in the field. And what we have come to realize that most of the Cameroonians who profess to be politicians or to be militant really are not. They just, a lot of them are hungry, a lot of them are greed. They are just out to look for position. I'm really sorry looking what is happening in some of those parties. You call even, I'm not putting name out, but they're just trying to find a way to be in a good position to be, let's say, to be to get the money, or to be nominated somewhere. They believe, for instance, my party, we should get a part of the cake and so on. So I need to hurry up to get a position, or whether in the west or in the littoral or in the central region, to be part of the whole big structure of the party in order to to be attractive to the government, so they will call me. We went through a lot of experience. We are saying, actually, the main problem of our country to get rid with people who profess hatred, to get rid of people who, when they sleep, they just ambition to get to be president and so on, while in the meantime, not trying to work out basically for Cameroonians to get together, to try to say, okay, what do we do with what's happening in the Nozo with our brother? Let's sit down and talk. Let's see a variety of people who can do something out of it. Cardinal Toumi died. I'm sorry. I can cry for him. He died, but he did a lot. We need more people. I talked with Frondi, which I consider like my father. I told him, look, Ba, you should do something else. It's come up and do what you did in Ebalova, meet the president again. I even forward the message up there to see we need a meeting between President Paul Biya and Frondi, who, for instance, for this time, for myself, I believe he seemed to be the most indicated person
to solve the crisis.
Yeah, not to solve the crisis, at least to try to work out something.
Okay.
Look, now we have been putting down structure of MPDI. What is really important, a lot of people came to us saying the year MPDI got billions. We say no.
We shall come to that.
Exactly.
I would ask what is the difference between MPDR and the CPDM, because look as if the same house.
Look, just get this right. We believe the main issue of our country now is to appease the situations, is to get Cameroonians together, is to say we are one country, we need dialogue, we need reconciliations. If there is any problem, we can sit down and solve the problem, not going in the bush, get out with gun, killings and so on.
Okay, thank you.
This is our position.
Thank you. You have listened to the two politicians here, Patrick?
Yes, I think it's quite interesting.
One saying that others are meeting and rushing over now because they are hungry, they need food. The other one saying that they want to revive the basic organs of the party.
Patrick, talk fine.
No, I will not want to take any particular side, but I think what the political parties are doing is just what is expected of them to be animating the political scene. I think some of them are even doing it a little too late, because in other countries, the moment and the election comes to an end, be it national elections or local elections, work begins immediately. And so, but the experience we have had here is that usually you have political parties trying to reorganize their basic structures just on the eve of elections or so. And it doesn't really work that way. Go to Nigeria, the elections are due, national elections are due for 2023. The place is already busy with political parties crisscrossing the country, trying to meet with the base and all of that. But we don't really see much of that around. We have a country where political parties are given 13 days to campaign, and that is all. It doesn't happen elsewhere. You cannot, for a national election, you cannot be given 13 days to do campaign in this country, for a country of 26 million. Going by recent statistics, it is not possible. So we don't really see much of those kind of programs. Political parties engaging in programs that are nationally oriented, like what we're seeing now. Well, the SDF they are planning to tour all 58 divisions. That's quite interesting. But I doubt if they will be able to tour all of those divisions. I doubt if Kemlemo will be able to go to Lebialem and hold an SDF meeting there. Or to go to Menchum.
I was in the elections there. I was there in the election in Menji.
You were heavily guarded. You were heavily guarded to go and vote.
So why do you think they cannot guard me now?
So why should you be guarded to go home meetings?
Now, Joe Jabati, you're following what is going here.
Next week, MPDR.
Well, you're following what I'm saying here now. But especially in the UPC party that has been known to be divided all of this while. I mean, Balekelen Court, Babali put 2 secretaries general, and then the government is seemingly supporting one of the factions. Now they're saying they want to reconcile. How possible can that be?
The UPC, as I think the oldest political party in Cameroon today as we speak, is really regrettable to see the various factions that once in a while crop up from that party, which is supposed to be, a party maybe that other political parties coming up should look up to.
Should refer to.
Should really refer to.
Yeah.
A party that was born in the days before independence of Cameroon. So if today we are still having those factions within the UPC, I think there's a fundamental problem somewhere.
What can be that problem? Is there anybody interested in seeing UPC divided, or the SDF divided, or Professor's Party divided?
Yeah, with Cameroon and with the authorities, we know everything is possible.
Divide and rule.
Yes, the divide and rule policy or system in Cameroon is very, very active, and it is at work. And if you want to look at a party like the UPC, which is divided almost all the time, I think there's something somewhere very wrong, which that divide and rule aspect should not be completely rolled out. That is one. Two, the UPC, when I look at that party today as we stand, I think maybe the UPC has lived its time. Because when you look at that party, representation nationally, you don't see it. I mean, it is some sort of a regional party. And we want to talk about the political party in Cameroon. I think it should be a party that we can see that party, you know, doing elections or maybe campaigns all over the national territory, can have a council in Ngalemeduka, can have a council in Yagua, can have a council in Wom, and why not?
Okay, we shall be leaving in about 8 minutes, and I want us to take the time equitably and talk about what should be happening now. Elections are coming in 2025, and they're going to be very decisive in Cameroon, considering the fact that, you know, at the same time, you see the number of voters, only 6 million registered and 2.something million in last elections.
Yes.
You have a lot of work in front of you.
Yeah, I think it is not us who have a lot of work. It is those who have the destiny of this country.
Did they stop you from going to register?
Let me make my point, please.
1 minute, sir.
Yes, you are interrupting me. I said it is those who have the destiny of this country in their hands who have a lot of work. You know why? You have said it all. That 6 million voters, registered voters, out of a population of at least 24 million, we expectant voters rate number of 12 million. We have, out of those 6 million, if we take the latest statistics, not up to, at least around 3 million chose those who have to rule this country. There's a very big problem because the abstention rate, even those who register don't vote, the abstention rate is horrible. That is to say that the population of Cameroon, the people of Cameroon have turned their back on those who rule them. They are not interested.
Is that the best way of turning somebody's back?
It is. They are fed up because I am a practical politician on the field. I find a lot of difficulties campaigning and trying to beg people, educate them to go and register and vote. They tell me every day that it's a waste of time because the election results are known before time. They have important things to do, that the electoral code is nothing to write about. So when I say they have a lot of work to do is, if they are patriotic minds ruling this country, they should revisit the electoral code, as we are saying, and let it. Prof was talking about consensus, coming to a national consensus. One of the areas of national reconciliation that can be a very strong force is to agree on a consensual electoral code. Once that comes out, it will be a very powerful force in reconciling Cameroonians, and you will see the next elections. At least 12 million Cameroonians will register, and at least 8 million will go to vote.
Joe, the SDF one in the Northwest with the same electoral code is talking about. Don't you think that?
I wish I had time to
They won. They won.
And they were beaten with the same electoral code.
Yes. They won and we are beaten with the same electoral code. You know, the election wahala in Cameroon is a very, very complex one. A very, very difficult one. Because the stakeholders, those involved in the electoral process in Cameroon, at times you tend to ask a lot of questions. Why ask a lot of questions? From those involved in the registration to the voters themselves. When you look at Cameroon today, with the statistics we have, and those who've really registered, as he's saying, I think there's a fundamental problem. There's a fundamental problem. Because you tend to ask yourself, who is fooling who with the elections in Cameroon? Are we sure that the persons really ruling the country have been chosen by Cameroonians It's a big question. It's a very big question which remains, hanging somewhere on the air. Because today, if we are 26 million and only about 2.5 or 3 million people go to the polls, I think there should be a question mark. Because if you are in your house, you are the head of the family, and you have 10 kids, and your wife is there, and your sister is there, you have a small family meeting. And by the end of the day, you discover that even your own kids, your children, which they are from your womb, as we call it in local parlance.
We're calling the meeting.
Or by the time you say the meeting is at 8 p.m.
The whole house.
At 8 p.m., that is when they are going out to run little errands left and right. I mean, you start asking yourself, where am I going wrong in the midst of my own
Thank you,
family?
25 minutes.
Yeah.
My Professor, where do we end with you? Patrick Moore.
Yes, I think Dennis Kemlemo, we do a lot of things together, given that it's a very credible news source. So I want to just go back to what he said about the issue about the electoral code. I don't know why government has suddenly declared or developed clear feet on the issue of revisiting the electoral code if virtually everybody is talking about it. Not only political parties, civil society actors, international organizations have been mounting same pressure that there's certainly something wrong with the electoral code. And I don't know why government is so adamant with respect to trying to listen at least for once to the cry of the people.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that yes, the electoral code should be reviewed. We have to increase the voting population by bringing it down to 18. People should be at 18 with an ID card, should be able to decide the destiny of your country. And you should be able to even seek for public office. We have had ministers at the age of 24. But if you can only start voting at 20, then there's a problem. And you can only be voted at 21.
Okay.
So now the issue is, there are certain problematic aspects of the electoral code which allows for rigging. Like the rigging machinery is really active because of the way the electoral code has been structured. We should have a single ballot paper, for example.
Thank you. I will beg
why not
because of time constraints.
2 rounds for the presidential elections.
Professor, 1 minute to conclude. What is the way forward as for these activities?
You all people should realize that there is no way for the change of electoral code. One way and another way for advancement of the way the country is managed. It is a global issue. That's why my advice is, please, tell people to register. Tell them not to say, oh, on va faire comment? C'est la même chose. No. We should remain optimistic. Nobody told you the government of this country or the regime, just like they put it in political science, do not want to change the electoral code. The whole thing should stand in a frame of dialogue and reconciliations. If you keep up with a speech of hatred, les bêtis ont fait, les Anglos, les Bami, le président est mort. No, we won't get nowhere. We're going to be setting up just radicalism and hatred and so on.
Professor?
Believe me, I can tell you, the only way is let's get humble and keep our mind positive by negotiating even secretly with people holding the power, even some people abroad. Then
Professor,
we're going to get to it. We really need to change the electoral code.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor. It is with that we come to the end of today's edition of Press on CRTV. In addition, we invited Professor Jean-Claude Chandatonmi, who is a diplomat and chairman, a career diplomat and chairman of the MPDR political party. Nkemlemo Dennis of the SDF party spokesperson was here. Moa Patrick, a journalist working with the Guardian Post, and Jobati Joseph, who is a journalist and the corporate communication officer for the local material promotion authority, Mipromalu. I am Moki Edwin Kinzeka Ndiaoundi. Thank you for watching.